Hello everyone, and welcome back to Dragalia Foundry. It's time for another Adventurer Spotlight, and this time around we're looking at a fairly new unit, Fleur, the budding artist. I absolutely loved her part in the Hunt for Harmony story, and I was intrigued by her kit. So that's why I decided to make this video. This spotlight contains all of my thoughts on Fleur, how I'd build her, and my experience playing as her. But first, let's go over her stats, abilities, and skills. Fleur is a natural 4-star light element dagger wielder. She's an attack type, which means her stats favor strength rather than HP. Her strength ranking within the light pool may not look high at number 7. When you consider how many natural 5-stars light has, this placement isn't bad. Like all dagger units, Fleur has the critical rate co-ability, which begins at 3% and can be upgraded to 7% using Eldswater if you decide to promote her. Whether you'd want to promote her, of course, we'll address toward the end of the video. Fleur's first ability is HP of 70% equals skill haste of 8%. So long as her HP is above the 70% threshold, she can charge her skills slightly faster. This ability is quite relevant on her, as we'll see when it comes to skills, since Fleur's kit revolves around quickly cycling through them. Both this ability and her second one can be completely maxed out without promoting Fleur to a 5-star, so I'm only showing the final values here. Her second ability is Curse Res of 100%. This is a pretty big draw for Fleur, since Curse Res of 100% was previously only seen on wands like Lucretia and Amane, lances like Ryozan and Halloween Elisan, and staves like Hildegard and Halloween Althemia. Curse Res also helps Fleur in particular, since the effect of Curse, not being able to use skills, would be pretty debilitating to her whole game plan. Right now, Curse is mainly inflicted by Zodiark in his Dragon Trial, and by the Raging Manticore in its Void Battle. It is also presumed that High Zodiark will inflict Curse once that trial is released, but of course that's still technically unknown. Fleur's third and final ability is, like with all 4-stars, locked behind promotion. Paralyzed Punisher of 20% is okay, considering that Fleur's main skill can paralyze enemies, and her design revolves around casting that skill frequently. But the performance will vary greatly depending on whether the foe she's facing can be afflicted to begin with. Thankfully, both the Raging Manticore and Zodiark can be paralyzed. That being said, some enemies build resistance the more they're hit with an affliction, in increments of 20% according to the wiki. If this is accurate, it would mean Zodiark can only be paralyzed 3 times per match, since he starts off with 55% paralysis res. But let's switch over to Fleur's skills now, since I've already alluded to how they work a few times. Fleur's first skill, Captivating Canvas, uses the skill shift mechanic, previously only seen on rare units like Halloween Elisan, Dragon Yule Cleo, Mikoto, and Annalie. Depending on how many times you've already connected with a skill shift move, its effects will change. In Fleur's case, Captivating Canvas always deals 2 hits of light damage to enemies ahead, with a chance to paralyze them, and lots of bonus damage if the affected enemies were already paralyzed. But in Phase 2, meaning the second time you connect with this skill, the chance of paralysis increases. And in Phase 3, Fleur also restores some HP to all allies, after which the cycle resets. This skill has a lot of potential, with the main limitation being the fact that even enemies who are vulnerable to paralysis may build up resistance after repeated uses. The damage output on this skill is great against a paralyzed foe, but far less so when paralysis has no effect. Still, the heal at the end of the skill gives a nice incentive to utilize skill shift. While not a huge heal, if Fleur is fully built and on a team with a staff unit like Hildegard, she can hit around 200 HP per heal fairly consistently. This should also help Fleur maintain her skill haste and other HP 70% abilities she or your teammates have more easily. Of course, Fleur's second skill is part of what enables the looping mechanic on her first one. Pallet Punch increases Fleur's strength for a very short burst of 5 seconds, but also readies her Captivating Canvas for immediate use. We've never really seen a skill do this before. The closest we've come is on Halloween Elisan, whose second skill fills her skill gauges very slightly. The strength buff basically lasts just long enough to utilize Captivating Canvas, which is good, but don't expect it to do much beyond that. The big question mark with Pallet Punch, in my view, is when to use it. Do you hold it and wait until the gauge on Captivating Canvas is set to 0? so you get the max benefit as far as an immediate recharge? Or is it better to use Palette Punch as soon as possible so that you can begin filling its skill gauge again? I think the answer is hard to ascertain in a vacuum, but we can think about Fleur's SP generation for clues. Thanks to her 8% skill haste when her HP is above 70%, Fleur is able to generate 1529 SP during a full dagger combo plus a Fleur Strike, which is a popular advanced technique for daggers during their flip. While tricky to master if you're able to do this consistently, Fleur should be able to use her first skill after 2 but before 3 of these combos, and her second skill within 4 of them. This means that by the time Palette Punch is ready, you'll already have Captivating Canvas about 70% charged anyway. So my sense is that it's probably better to wait for the second Captivating Canvas and to use Palette Punch to then immediately ready up the third one. It also means that Fleur will have an emergency iframe available in a pinch. It also turns out that 23% skill haste is a sweet spot, which you can achieve with a maxed out 5-star archer's 15% co-ability. At 23%, Fleur only needs 2 combos to charge Captivating Canvas. This means she can use it twice before using her Palette Punch once, and Palette Punch won't be waiting idle for very long. With a 4-star archer like Luca or Elias, Fleur will need to compensate via Wyrmprint to reach this number. Now, I'll show off some gameplay of Fleur, which might give you a better idea of how realistically I was able to use her skills in practice, outside the setting of optimal combos. Against the Obsidian Golem, I got off around 11 uses of Captivating Canvas in 4 minutes, and versus Zodiark, I used that skill about 7 times. Neither match is perfect, but I hope both together give you an idea of how Fleur worked out for me. While that plays, let's discuss some build ideas for Fleur, starting with dragons. Light has a very rich pool of dragons, but there's little doubt over who's the strongest: Cupid. Fleur can afford to utilize a strength dragon since she's a melee attacker, and as an attacker, she'll appreciate all the strength she can get. Cupid has a fantastic skill, but his main draw is the 60% strength boost once max unbound. From there, Gilgamesh and Liger are some other great options. Liger gives a slight boost to healing, and both of these dragons would make it easier for Fleur to survive while utilizing multiple offensive Wyrmprints. Otherwise, the next best choice is Lindworm, who is easy to max unbind as a 4-star. Pure HP dragons like Unicorn or Jeanne d'Arc are not ideal. Halloween Silk could be used if necessary, and I'd suggest you avoid 3-star light dragons, Jupiter, and Shishimai altogether if you have any other light options whatsoever. Moving on to weapons, this all comes down to what level of investment you want for Fleur. If you need the stats for, say, a high dragon trial, then Fleur's 5-star dagger is the best pick for now, despite its lackluster skill. Thunderblade Cigar boosts its user's strength for only 5 seconds, and it's recommended that you don't try overlap this with Fleur's strength buff in her second skill. You'll eat into the buff time too much. If Fleur is instead being used for general content like void battles or future raids or facility events, then you can probably opt for the 4-star Nightbreaker instead. It comes with another attacking skill, and it'd be fairly easy to max unbind using steel bricks from the monthly void battle treasure trade. I'll also point out that Fleur has access to the Dazzling Big Boy, which has Fury Penetrator to help versus Void Manticore, but that weapon isn't really needed to consistently clear that fight. It's probably just overkill. Wyrmprints for Fleur are pretty straightforward. I'll start with the obvious combination. Yup, Resounding Rendition plus Levin's Champion. Chances are, if you're an attacker focused on skill damage, and if you lack a weapon-specific or element-specific print that's preferred, then this is going to provide the most DPS. If Fleur's co-ability was maxed out, then these Wyrmprints could bring her to a 23% critical rate total. So long as her HP stays above 70%, a cutoff Fleur already wants to maintain to keep her skill haste active. If you don't have access to Resounding Rendition and Levin's Champion, these are probably some of the best investments to make once the Wyrmprint shop opens. If you don't go this route though, I'd still recommend general skill damage on Fleur. Heralds of Hinamoto is a reasonable pick if running with a 4-star archer to improve Fleur's skill rotation, as I mentioned earlier. If you've teamed up with a 3-star archer instead, then you'll need to use Jewels of the Sun to reach the sweet spot of 23% skill haste for Fleur. Other than that, I'll also point out 2 4-star Wyrmprints that could be helpful. Kicking Back or Lord of the Skies combined with Gilgamesh or Liger could allow Fleur to enter High Zodiac Zodiark without the use of a High Dragon Wyrmprint. It's complete speculation for now, but this method has worked for the current High Dragons. In general, with dual prints, I've started rating incidental elemental resistance more highly. As far as teammates go, I've already mentioned how much I like a bow co-ability of Skill Haste for Fleur. The problem is, there's no 5-star light archer. Lara Noah would actually be an amazing teammate for multi-element content, as her kit synergizes really well with Fleur. But since elemental advantage matters a lot for High Dragons, Fleur's options are realistically limited to Ron, Luca, Elias, and Malara for archers. I think both Luca and Malara are good choices among these. Luca benefits from Fleur's healing to maintain his full HP full strength, plus he paralyzes enemies, helpful if the affliction resist cap hasn't been reached already. The drawback to Luca is that he might need to run Heavenly Holiday or a Solitary Light to avoid getting cursed, depending on the context. Malara's edge is that she can run King's Countenance for 25% curse res instead, bringing her to 100% total with a good secondary effect of Shapeshift prep. But Malara's drawback is that Fleur would need 6% more skill haste to hit her sweet spot due to Malara's lower co-ability, which can pretty much only be obtained from the Jewels of the Sun Wyrmprint right now. The other co-ability I think Fleur really wants is skill damage, making Lucretia or even Amane perfect to use alongside her. Since both of these adventurers have 100% curse res, I tend to prefer Lucretia due to her stronger co-ability and the energy mechanic. If you can align Captivating Canvas so that Phase 3 is energized, you should get a 50% bump to both the healing and damage dealt from the skill all at once. Finally, let's touch briefly on Fleur's competition. Fritz is the other 4-star light dagger, and he has poison res of 100%. His kit is ideal for taking on many enemies at once, thanks to his striker's skill, and his mechanics as a whole revolve around being able to use force strikes, making him best under player control and not in the hands of the AI. Both he and Irfan have skills which debuff enemy defense, but Fritz's is on his faster to charge primary skill, while Irfan's debuff is on skill 2. Both units also have in common strength double buff of 8%, although Fritz only gets this as a 5-star. Yet neither Fritz nor Irfan have any way to utilize this within their innate kit, meaning they need outside help like Ryozan or Hope to make this part of their game plan work. Ultimately, I think Fleur edges out both Fritz and Irfan slightly, but mainly because of her curse res of 100%. Fritz or Irfan would need to use a Wyrmprint slot to achieve this, while Fleur can use that slot on skill damage instead. Fritz is still very good for Shadow Imperial Onslaught, of course. He and Fleur seem rather close in terms of power level. It's just that for High Dragons or any solo boss maps in general, Fleur is likely to become the better pick. And, well, that's about all I have to say about Fleur. She's a fun unit to play thanks to some unique mechanics, and her story and design are among my favorites. If you like dagger weapons and want to build up your combo abilities, Fleur may be a good choice for you. She will shine brightest with tight play and good rotations, granting her lots of SP for her skill loop. And speaking for myself, even someone who isn't the best at using daggers can still pilot her and do decently well, as my own gameplay hopefully showed. I could definitely see Fleur playing a major role against High Zodiark, likely to bait his attacks away from her allies, similar to how Orsum performs in High Brunhilde. Her incidental healing seems even better in that context when you consider the other healing at play from units like Halloween Elisan and dragons like Cupid. Even though Fleur isn't really needed for any especially hard fights right now, I can't wait to see how she does once that battle is released. I wouldn't say you should promote her for now, but if she's one of your favorite units, I'm fairly confident that she will have a role to play in the future. Alright, and that's going to do it for this Adventurer Spotlight. But what do you think of Fleur? Were you able to summon her? How do you like her skill and ability kit? Is there any other build idea you had that I didn't talk about here? As always, I'd love to hear what you have to say in the comments below. Otherwise, everyone, thank you so much for watching, take care, and I'll see you next time.